A rover, this whole world over.
And the therapist. We had mentioned several times, and we'll be mentioning over and over again, those 4 words. What upholds your existence?
As happy as me, you'll never see.
Going to the extreme. If you have an extreme problem, you may have to go to an extreme to deal with it. For instance, if someone is 150 pounds overweight, they're not going to be able to approach losing weight incrementally for the next 2 or 3 or 4 years. It's not going to work. They're going to get frustrated and disgusted after 2 or 3 weeks on a diet and give up and go back to eating. That individual will probably have to go to the extreme. Fasting, cleansing, drastically reducing the amount of food he eats. Really go to an extreme in order to finally recognize that, hey, I can do this, and begin to build up some steam and get leverage changing. So leverage and momentum can be affected by going to an extreme. It's like a football game. I think it was last year, the Giants were playing, I think it was Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh was behind by 3 touchdowns plus in the final quarter, 7 minutes to go. Half the people left the stadium. Game was over. And then you could see, if you were watching, the Pittsburgh defensive team just getting on each other, and you could see them beginning to get very emotional about what each person had to do, and the leverage was totally against them. They went to the extreme. They started doing things, come hell or high water, we're going to get the ball in our hands no matter what. There's no way we're going to not get that ball away from them. And they did. And they kept doing it. In that 7 minutes, they switched the leverage with extreme challenging behavior, and boom, they won the game. So all of these things, by the way, always connect like that mosaic. You got to piece all these tools and concepts together. Some are used this way, some are used this way, some are connected this way, but they're all interconnected on one level or another. Treat all issues as ordinary human problems and conflicts. Don't create dramas. I don't care what happens. It's either a problem, an issue, or conflict, but don't make it a big, big drama. I even say that when I got back from Greece 17 years ago, when we returned from catastrophe, to say it like Zorba the Greek, our life was in turmoil, chaos, an absolute catastrophe. We'd lost everything. And then I get on the phone with my closest friend, Neil Selden, and he tells me that, sorry news that our dear friend Spencer has died. Oh my God, last thing in the world I needed to hear. And then Neil says, one more thing I better tell you. He says, I've been diagnosed with terminal cancer. According to the doctors, I've got about 2.5 years to live. And then Neil burst into laughter and said, you want to hear any more? He said, that's the worst of it. So let's go from there, Nickolas. I know you're going to be fine, Nan's going to be fine, the kids are going to be fine. I know you. You'll get it all together and turn it around, and I'm going to do the same. So what I'm saying is, even at this stage, with Neil with his cancer, and our family with our catastrophe and losing everything, no dramatizing. Get on with it. Do it. You know? Neil's alive and kicking 17 years later. So even in that situation, what's the point of dramatizing? All you're doing is sinking, turning it against you even more, and basically shouting for help, hoping that someone is somehow going to come along and take your pain away. And it doesn't work that way. They'll sooner take your pain away if they see you smiling than if they see you, digging into your grave. Drama doesn't work. Drama belongs on stage or in a movie or in a play or a book. That's where drama belongs. There's enough of it in life. You don't have to create more of it. You don't have to indulge in it. No point to it. Losing game. Exercise emotions, senses, instincts, and sense memory. Exercise all of these things that we take for granted. They shouldn't be taken for granted at all. Don't just exercise your body, exercise your mind, exercise your senses. You can do it every day. You can train yourself to do it. It's not a big, difficult thing. I've said this to you before, I say it again. Wherever you are, in the course of your day, you're going places, right? Going to eat, you're going to meet friends, going to work, going to someone's home, a shop, right? You're always someplace, doing something. Well, wherever you are, while you're doing the something you're doing, exercise your senses. Don't just glance around, but see where you are. Observe. Open your eyes. What's Michael, the cameraman, doing back there? What's he nodding his head about? I wonder what he's feeling and thinking. Well, those plants over there, they look very healthy and hardy and robust. Why is that Oscar? What the hell is an Oscar doing up over there? You know, what are the... See. Take in what you're seeing. Exercise your eyes. Your ears. Don't just hear, but listen. Take everything into account. All sounds. Where are they coming from? What's happening? Why is someone screaming bloody murder across the street? What's going on there? Smell. Really smell. Even if it's a foul smell, exercise your sense of smell. Taste. 400,000 taste buds. Use them. Taste. Chew. Eat. Flavor. Get in touch with it. Don't just... Everything you do. Drink a glass of juice, water. Nan brings me juice. She gets up 4:30 in the morning. By that time I'm thirsty. She brings me a glass of juice. I take it. Taste it, really. Oh, get in touch with that taste. Get in touch with everything you're doing. Practice that. It's so simple. You don't need to be in a special place at a special time, feeling a special thing. Just practice using your senses. If you think for a moment that that's not going to reverberate throughout your life, you're making a big mistake. But remember, don't test these things. Don't just try it out for a couple of days and weeks and then say, well, that's a nice idea, but no big deal, nothing's happening. It's not the quick fix, boom, it's going to be a major change. But over a period of months, you're going to discover that you're more alert, that you're more in touch with what you're feeling and what you're experiencing. You're more there in your time, alive, living in the now, and aware of your now. The actor does it, the artist does it. If they don't do it, they're finished. Show me anyone who is a creative talent who must perform. They have no choice but to do this, because if they don't do it, they're going to be absolute failures. They're not going to work in the arts. Nobody's going to hire them. So they're forced to do it. We should treat ourselves, again, going back to theater and therapy joined together, the same way, and force ourselves to do this and not try. Bhalobashi, I live in your good. That's another Indian term for love. It's much stronger than I love you. I don't disown myself from I love you. I say I love you a couple hundred times a day. But it's supported, reinforced by Bhalobashi. I live in your good. That is true love. If I live in your good, I'm concerned, I'm caring, I'm giving, I'm alert to your needs. As opposed to simply saying, I love you. That's lovely, I love you. As Spence would often say to people, don't tell me you love me, but if you see me working in the fields, bring me a glass of milk and a piece of pie. I don't want to hear you love me, bring me something. Thakur said it perfectly. The language of Thakur, again, so perfect. Love before you speak of love. Again, no rocket science behind that, right? So simple to understand. A child can understand that. Love before you speak about love. We speak of love, 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 romantically, sexually, Hollywood love, I love you, affectionately, all that. That's lovely. But true love is balabashi, I live in your good.
So another way to say that would be like love is action, not words.
It's all the actions, all the things you're capable of acting upon on all levels. I live in Nan's good, so I say yes. And it was the hardest one for both of us to learn, Took a long period of our marriage to learn how to say yes and keep saying it and maintain that as the basic core of everything. Yes, I live in your good, so I say yes, not maybe or no, or I don't feel like doing it. Once you start using the language, just as with all of these things, once you start doing them consistently, things start happening, things start changing. When you think in terms of balavashi, I live in your good, do that with every person you really care about. Stop and ask yourself, how do I live in the good of my family, my friends, my co-workers, anyone, neighbor? Do I actually do it? I don't know how many of you were watching movies last night, but one of my favorites was on Meet John Doe, Frank Capra movie from 1941. Wonderful story about the John Doe movement, where people just got in touch with caring about one another in practical ways, daily ways. And that's, I live in your good. Ask yourself about all the people you care about, that you know, that you love. Are you really living in their good? What have you done? When have you really shown that you live in their good?
When we mentioned that a couple of weeks ago, I was meeting with an Indian couple later that day, and I was all excited that I was going to be able to say,
They did not know it?
and they didn't know what I was talking about. Two professional people, and they said, never heard the words. I was so bummed.
Tell them that a wonderful mystic, a spiritual leader who was thought of as God in India by many, many people, named Thakur, came up with the term Thakur Balavashi, just as he came up with so many
How do you
things.
spell that, Thakur?
Thakur. You can go on YouTube and you'll find a lot about Thakur. Sri Sri Anakul Kandra Thakur. Just put in Thakur and you'll get her a Sri Sri, S-R-E-E, S-R-E-E, repeated, Thakur. And you'll find a lot about him. I think of Thakur as the greatest mind of the 20th century, even above and beyond Einstein and Gandhi. In fact, Gandhi went to Thakur, considered Thakur one of his spiritual guides, his advisor. Make every day a work of art, which is the theme of next week's session. Go to wake up that way, actually. There's a bit of language when you wake up in the morning. Tell yourself you're going to make your day a work of art. And then write out what you're going to do to make it a work of art. What can you do? We have the power to make every day a work of art, but so many of us fail to understand that power and acknowledge it and do it consistently. And again, that connects with everything else. Then the leverage remains like this. Once you start living that way, all of these concepts, I live in your good, doing all the things you want to do, make everyday work of art, the leverage begins to shift. In your mind, in your critical mind, in your subconscious mind, everything begins to change. Live in the now. You cannot live in the now if you do not have a now. I tell people this because most people who follow this thinking about living in the now, either spiritually or in other ways, don't really have a now. Spirituality, in theory, intellectually, philosophically, and $2.95 gets you a cup of coffee. You have to live it. just as the Balabachi is what really makes love. You have to do those things, not just say, I love you. So in order to live in the now, you have to have a now. You have to create a now. If your now is negatively charged, then where is your now? What are you talking about? Living in conflict, living in your problem zones, living in your procrastination, in your moods. Is that the now you're living in? Living in your ego? Living in being in yourself? Is that living in a now? No, that's not what you want. That's not a now to live in. The consummate world of change. That's the engine that drives all of it. You should think of it as the locomotive, always working at you. Change, change, change for the rest of your life. That's what it amounts to. Never-ending change. The day you stop changing is the day you really begin to die in the truest sense. The day you decide to change is the day you begin to really live. Embrace change as a friend, not an enemy. Don't be afraid to change. Look at every area of your life that needs changing and begin to change it. Begin to practice change on all levels. Ask yourself, what are those habits that you refuse to change? Even simple things. Kind of clothing you wear, kind of food you eat, music you listen to, the way you arrange your home. Look at all those areas and tell yourself, well, why can't I begin to change just for the purpose of training myself to change? I told the story a couple of weeks back. My wife and I in Newfoundland, the last day in 2008, we're doing some shopping for gifts. And we're in a lovely little store, and Nan suddenly looks at a row of these Tilly hats and turns to me and says, Nickolas, try one on. No, I don't wear a hat. I won't wear a hat. Last time I wore a hat was in the military. And on the day I was discharged, I kid you not, when I stepped outside of that military installation, walked past the air policeman on there, I got 3 feet away and took my hat and flung it as far as I could. I said, never want to wear one again for the rest of my life. And I was, committed to that. I don't like hats. Don't like it. So when Ann said, well, try one, I said, no, honey, I don't wear a hat. Try it on, for God's sake, what do you have to lose? Try that on for me. Just want to see how you look in a hat. And, okay, put it on. And it was too big, and the sales girl came over and said, let me give you one right size. So she measured my head and put on another one. And I'm looking in the mirror, and I didn't look bad. And yet still, his ego working, I'm still wanting to say no, at which when opposed, even though it looks good. So Nan just stares at me. Okay, I'll get it. Make another long story short, I've got 2 Tilly hats now, winter and summer, and I wear them regularly. Change something. What have we got to lose? Huh? What have we got to lose, really? A lot to gain. Just recognizing that you can make changes, that it doesn't have to be this difficult battle. It can be fun. It can be exciting. Change. Go through life that way, and you will be all the richer for it, I guarantee you. All the richer. Keep changing, keep growing. Never arrive. Never, ever, ever arrive. In fact, I'm going to close this with that story I've told before about my mentor, Jimmy Germano. After 9 months at Daytop, I'm walking along the beach with him, and I look at him and say, Jimmy, how much longer do you think it will take me to get my act together? And Jimmy, in his con artist fashion, looked up at the sky and took a drag of his cigarette as if he was really contemplating the question, which I should have known better. I know, knowing him, that he was not. He didn't need to contemplate it at all. And I'm thinking, what's he going to say? And I'm hoping he's going to say, another 3, 4, 5 months maybe. And finally he looks at me and says, how would you feel if I tell you another 18 months? And my stomach just dropped. It felt awful. 18 more months of this confrontation and deal with it and change. You know, and again, these people with a master's at, they didn't leave you alone. And I looked at Jimmy and I said, well, you're the boss. 18 months is going to be. And we walk along, and then Jimmy looks at me and smiles, and then begins to laugh hysterically at me. He put it over beautifully. And his words, pardon my French, his exact words were, you stupid bastard. It's going to take you the rest of your effing life. And I finally got it, finally understood what the concept was really about. And it was absolutely the reality that I needed to hear. And I'm still working on that. I'm going to be 76 next Wednesday, and I'm still changing. I'm still going at it. And I'm going to keep on doing it no matter what. And that's what it is about. The rest of your effing life. Otherwise, you're going to die prematurely. You're not going to give yourself the due credit you deserve in life. You're going to miss out on so many things because opportunity only happens when you're ready for it. You've got to be ready to spring, to change, to move along. And if you're thinking that you've arrived already and you don't want to change, it could walk right by you and you wouldn't even see it. Just like the perfect individual in your life, the perfect partner, you won't even recognize them if you're not really alert and clued into life and changing and growing. You'll find every reason to miss out, and you will regret and regret and regret. And you don't want to pass through life and end up regretting. You want to be able to lie there with family and friends and hold on to them and look at life and say, I did my best, did everything I could do, and I'm anxious to get on to the next one.
From God's on board, each day I dine. From the Bering Straits to Palestine, this spring, this brook will ring the bell. No need of wealth, you're in God's hotel. Rover, rover, this whole world over. Happy as me, you'll never see. Rover, rover, this whole world over. Happy as me, you'll never see.
One should know though was Christ's motto, so do the same. Let heaven flow.